A Park Rapids man was sentenced to 62 months in prison Thursday for bringing a prostitute to Bemidji. According to the criminal complaint, the crimes took place over a year ago on September 15, 2016. Bemidji Police Department detectives made contact with a woman identified by the initials KD, who informed them that a man named Cruz, later identified to be 45-year-old David Cruz Velasquez, brought her from Duluth to Bemidji to perform sexual acts with men for money. In an unrelated case, Velasquez was sentenced to an additional 15 months in prison for attempting to solicit what he believed to be a minor for prostitution. Bemidji police detectives placed an ad in September of 2016 on Backpage.com and secured a hotel room, all the while texting Velasquez that they were a 15-year-old girl offering to perform sexual acts for money. When Velasquez arrived at the hotel, he was greeted by Bemidji Police Department officers and arrested. Velasquez will receive credit for 138 days served in the Beltrami County Jail.
I'm Larissa Donovan, reporting from Bemidji for PolkMoneyBroadcasting.com.
As we first reported Saturday, there was an accidental shooting in Polk County on Saturday morning. It's now been confirmed by Crookston Police Chief Paul Biermeyer. In a news release, it says the victim is a 21-year-old male from Sauk Center, Minnesota, who is not being identified. This happened near Crookston along Highway 9 while the victim was goose hunting, and it was accidental. The victim drove himself to the emergency room at Riverview Hospital. The news release does not say exactly where the victim shot himself, but according to scanner traffic at the time, he had shot himself in the foot. I'm Neil Carlson reporting for iNews.tv.
They are closing, They was everybody's worst fears. The meeting was basically a technicality. There was a large showing of community support. They were offered solutions that, we're a very strong community. We've fundraised money before. We could certainly do it again. They had no interest in hearing about that. They finally did it.
Who is the nursing home owned by?
The Good Samaritan Society, with their corporate locations based out of Sioux Falls.
Okay. So how many residents and about how many employees there?
There are, as of tonight, we were told there's 30 residents there, and there are about 35 employees that will be affected by this.
Northeast North Dakota now has the Tri-County Special Response Team. That Tri-County Tactical Team includes law enforcement officers from Walsh, Pembina, and Cavalier counties. There are around 14 members of the team who are all receiving specialized training. Along with the training, equipment, including vehicles, has been secured to enhance the skills that team members have learned. I talked to Cavalier County Chief Deputy Paul Podrosky, who said the Special Response Team will be a plus for Northeast North Dakota because of a shorter response time in an emergency.
Our closest tactical team to respond up to this area is Grand Forks, and that could take several hours for them to respond. So we created our own tactical team, and each member will be trained and gone through by the end of this month and attend specialized SWAT school.
Staging climax fire, got a vehicle that rear-ended a BEET truck about 2 to 2.5 miles south of town. Sounds like the vehicle's smoking, possibly on fire. The individual's still in the vehicle.
The Minnesota State Patrol now says the driver of the Blazer who was killed in the crash was 36-year-old Jason Nelson of Neilsville, Minnesota. The driver of the BEET truck, 21-year-old Dalton Fredrickson of Thief River Falls, was not injured. The patrol says the truck was stopped northbound on Highway 75 to turn west on 410th Street southwest when the Blazer, driven by Jason Nelson, crashed into the rear of the truck. The patrol says alcohol was not a factor in the crash for either driver. I'm Neil Carlson reporting for iNews.tv. A Crookston man has been named as an armed and dangerous suspect in a hatchet robbery on the Minnesota Iron Range. The police chief in Bewabic, Minnesota, near Virginia, tells iNews they're looking for 32-year-old Anthony Theodore Wagner of Crookston. He allegedly entered the Lakeland store near Bewabic on Monday night armed with a hatchet. Police say he was wearing a face mask and holding a hatchet in his hand when he demanded money from the clerk. He fled the store with an unknown amount of cash. No one was injured. However, police say if you spot Wagner, do not approach him. Call 911. I'm Neil Carlson reporting for iNews.tv. There's been a new development in the murder case against Eddie Frazier of Crookston. Frazier is charged with second-degree murder in the death of Tanya Wallace at a downtown Crookston apartment in May. An autopsy showed Wallace was strangled to death. Her body was found floating in the tub. Frazier was then shot while being arrested following the murder in Minneapolis. Now, at a court hearing in Crookston this week, it appears a grand jury will now decide whether to move the charge of second-degree murder against Frazier up to first-degree murder. A first-degree murder charge carries a life sentence. Second-degree is 40 years. The next court hearing is scheduled for November. I'm Neil Carlson reporting for iNews.tv.
All True Rescue 4, Thompson Fire. All True Rescue 4, Thompson Fire.
There have been at least 6 accidents involving BEET trucks in the Northern Valley since Friday. It sparked a controversy on social media on whether sugar beet truck drivers should be required to have a CDL, a commercial driver's license, before climbing behind the wheel. At this point, they don't. On Friday, a BEET truck driver was injured after tipping her truck on County Road 5 near the Grand Forks Airport. At 2 a.m. Saturday, another BEET truck driver came close to being electrocuted after raising his truck box in a field and coming in contact with an overhead power line. Then at 6 a.m. Saturday, another driver tipped his truck near Gilby. I've since learned another truck driver tipped his truck near Stephen, Minnesota on Saturday. Then at 10 a.m. Saturday, a BEET truck driver was cited for failing to yield, striking another car at an intersection east of East Grand Forks and injuring a woman. Then on Tuesday morning, one man was killed after driving into the back of a BEET truck, stopped on Highway 75 south of Climax, waiting to turn off the highway. The driver of the truck was not listed at fault by the Highway Patrol. However, I've also received a couple of posts from other drivers who say they've had close calls because of BEET trucks pulling out in front of them. And not to pick on BEET truck drivers here, since thousands of other trucks will be needed across North Dakota and Minnesota to haul in the bean and corn crop. The state patrols in both states are in charge of enforcing the laws. Legislators are in charge of making the laws. So, what do you think? Should farm truck drivers be required to have a commercial driver's license? Here's a shot of folks lined up outside the Chick-fil-A in Grand Forks. It will be the first one to open in North Dakota. Had quite a few folks camp out overnight. The first 100 people get a card for a free chicken sandwich and lemonade for a year. The doors open at 6:30 on this Thursday morning. I'm Neil Carlson reporting for iNews.tv.
Formal charges have been filed against 4 men involved in a shooting at a Bemidji area gas station. According to the criminal complaint, 46-year-old Andre Lamar Beasley and 24-year-old Devion Liddell Beasley Sr. have been charged with possessing firearms when they were ineligible to do so due to prior violent convictions. And 35-year-old Andy Tillotson and 31-year-old Kevin Robertson were charged with felony assault charges. The complaint states that on Thursday, October 5th, a white SUV pulled into Pete's Place West with Tillotson and Robertson inside, and Tillotson exited the SUV with a pry bar in hand, hiding by the SUV. When the younger Beasley arrived in a Mercedes, Tillotson reportedly began to swing the pry bar at him, who reached into the car for a pistol and fired. The Mercedes left the area, and Tillotson and Robertson went inside the gas station before leaving. Beltrami County deputies located the 3 involved in the altercation, and a search warrant executed at the residence of the elder Beasley discovered ammo and firearms. The younger Beasley is scheduled to appear in court Friday, and the other 3 are scheduled to appear Monday.
I'm Larissa Donovan, reporting from Bemidji for PoleBunnyBroadcasting.com.
It appears the case against a man charged with breaking into a Grand Forks apartment last month and stabbing a man and woman will go to trial. Jordan Parisian, no permanent address, waived his preliminary hearing in Grand Forks District Court. That hearing would determine if there is enough evidence to bring the case to trial. Jordan is charged with breaking into a Grand Forks apartment September 4th and stabbing a man and woman who survived the attack. He was arrested a couple days later after trying to break into the apartment again. Parisian isn't scheduled to appear in court again until December. I'm Neil Carlson reporting for iNews.tv.
The state of North Dakota is getting closer to putting medical marijuana on the market, and county leaders say they're unsure how to manage the crops here at home. 8 dispensaries and 2 farms are set to be in operation within months, but it's unclear where and how the state plans to manage the budding business. One of the 2 farms will be in McKenzie County, but the remaining farm and all of the dispensaries could pop up anywhere. Dispensaries can't be within 1,000 feet of a school, and marijuana can't be at school events. Beyond that, little advice has been given to county leaders. The state is collecting fees for the marijuana business, including a $110,000 registration fee for growers and a $90,000 fee for dispensaries every 2 years. While businesses wait to hear from the state, North Dakota still plans to have products in the hands of patients next year.
Additional charges have been filed against 3 men accused of breaking and entering into another man's home, then beating and robbing him in early March. According to court documents, 25-year-old Joseph Devin Wood of Bemidji pleaded not guilty to an additional charge of aggravated robbery Wednesday. The original criminal complaint accuses Wood and 2 accomplices, 19-year-old Tristan Lee Fox of Bagley and 22-year-old Francisco Cesena of Bemidji, of breaking into the victim's home, binding his hands and legs with tape, beating the victim with a bat, and stealing $1,000 in cash. Wood's jury trial is scheduled to begin today and continue into next week. Fox will be seen for a pretrial hearing on October 24th, and Cesena will appear for a contested omnibus hearing on October 30th. I'm Larissa Donovan, reporting from Bemidji for PullBunyanBroadcasting.com.
33-year-old Brandon Lee Bjornstead of Nitchie, North Dakota, has been charged with 6 counts of sexual exploitation of a minor, 7 counts of possession of child porn, extortion, and more. It's alleged that between May of 2015 and March of this year, Bjornstead coerced children into messaging him pornographic images. His trial is scheduled for December. If convicted, he faces a minimum sentence of 15 years in prison on some of the charges. I'm Neil Carlson reporting for iNews.tv.
A couple suspected of shoplifting from a Kohl's store led police on a 100-mile-per-hour chase with 3 kids in the back seat.
Yikes.
The youngest just 3 months old. The couple, a 23-year-old man from Brooklyn Center and a 22-year-old woman from St. Cloud, fled the Kohl's in Waite Park at 7:15 p.m. On Wednesday. Kohl's was able to provide police with a license plate number for the car they escaped in, which revealed the driver was wanted for a robbery in West St. Paul and may be armed. An unmarked squad car found their vehicle southbound on Highway 15, but when Waite Park PD tried to stop them, they fled onto eastbound I-94. Attempts by both Stearns County and Wright County Sheriff's deputies to use stop sticks were unsuccessful, with the car continuing to drive on the interstate at speeds of around 100 miles per hour. The pursuit continued to Albertville, but was abandoned when the officers were informed there was a child in the vehicle. Police eventually caught up to them, though, in heavy traffic. This time, the stop sticks succeeded in slowing the car.
This week, the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office in Hugo, Colorado, arrested Kyle Lucas Mazuko, 27, formerly of Oakley, Minnesota, on an active felony-level Red Lake County warrant. The Minnesota Department of Corrections also holds a warrant for Mazuko's arrest and will transport him back to Minnesota once he waives extradition. Mazuko is a Level 2 predatory offender, and he must maintain registration compliance with the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. He has been out of compliance since February of 2017, when he left his residence in Oakley without notifying the BCA or his probation agent. I'm Neil Carlson reporting for iNews.tv. Grand Forks police made a bizarre arrest around 9:45 Wednesday night in an incident that started on the 800 block of 18th Avenue South in Grand Forks.
Well, someone called saying that an individual was trying to get into his home, and while officers were arriving, that the caller kind of kept tabs on the suspect until officers arrived. Once officers arrived, apparently the suspect actually climbed into the front seat of an arriving patrol vehicle and then didn't want to leave that vehicle. He was removed. He was identified.
The suspect, Jason Noyes, appeared in Grand Forks District Court on this Friday, and he's been formally charged with felony attempted criminal trespass. I'm Neil Carlson reporting for iNews.tv. In a news release, the Mahnomen County Sheriff's Department says within the last 24 hours, Mahnomen County, located on the White Earth Reservation, has had 4 heroin overdoses that led to the death of Marissa Sargent, age 23, of Nadawash. The Mahnomen County Sheriff's Office and White Earth Police Department, along with the Paul Bunyan Task Force and Headwaters Safe Trails Task Force, are currently investigating these overdoses. Law enforcement is encouraging anyone with information related to these overdoses to contact the Mahnomen County Sheriff's Office at 218-935-2255 or the White Earth Police Department at 218-983-3281. I'm Neil Carlson reporting for iNews.tv. According to court documents, a fertile Minnesota man charged with shooting an airplane that was in flight said he was using lethal force to defend himself because the airplanes were engaged in terrorism. 51-year-old Chad Olson is now facing 4 felony charges, including second-degree attempted murder, second-degree assault, and 2 counts of criminal damage to property. Repairs to the plane he allegedly shot are estimated at $20,000. Last Friday, a pilot who was unnamed was flying a 1974 Cessna at the Fertile Airport. He was doing touch and goes, practice landings and takeoffs, when he said he heard a twang, something he's never heard in his 30 years of flying. Then, while cleaning the plane, he noticed a bullet entry and exit hole near the rear of the plane. He said many of the cables are located there, and if the bullet had hit the cables, it could have caused structural damage. A deputy investigating the case was aware that Chad Olson lives near the runway and had made several earlier complaints about airplanes flying over his property. It was also discovered Olson had made threatening calls to the Federal Aviation Administration about planes flying over his property. And also, according to court documents, a neighbor stated that he heard 3 shots fired in the air when the pilot's plane was hit and saw Olson holding a .30-06 rifle, and that earlier Olson may have shot at 3 other planes during the year. The neighbor also said he heard Olson state he was using lethal force to defend himself because the airplanes were engaged in terrorism. I'm Neil Carlson reporting for iNews.tv.